Welcome back, guys, to another tutorial on this channel. Today I want to show you how to create some kind of growl for dubstep in Bitwig Studio without using any additional VST plugins. And it's actually not that hard. So going for Pulley Grid here, so I can explain this much better. In here we use a scroll oscillator. We use an ADSR, of course, for the volume envelope. Use an audio output. So this is how it sounds. So just the bass. So in the scroll we need a very complex waveform. When you watch some dubstep producers how they do this, they usually go to Serum and create some random noisy waveforms without any fundamental, but you can do this here in the grid. With the scroll also pretty easy by just going with the snap up to a point, using this thing, creating a lot of dots, selecting all the dots, right click, transform, double contents, we have even more dots. Then we select all the dots, we go with the value here up to chaos, we randomize all that stuff until it sounds like a broken CD. Okay, like this. Doesn't really matter. So in here we need two filters, and we go for cell and key filter because they have bandpass with 8 pole here, which is nice. It's pretty steep. And we disable here the pre-chord for the pitch, because we don't want to change the pitch with the keyboard input. So, and what we do now, we basically search for the Vocaloid frequencies, the fixed frequencies of a monster grunt. So something around here, right, going up. And we modulate this with the segments. In here, we make this a bit slower. Something like this. And then we modulate here the frequency. So that's the first frequency. And the second one here is a bit higher, maybe by 1K. It's basically the same thing we did with Delay Llama reconstruction in some of my recent videos. It's the same thing, it's just for bass. So we bring this together, send this to equal power. So here we don't want to go up with the frequency, we want to go down. Maybe we modulate your auto resonance. So we need to find the right frequencies. Don't need to modulate that much the second one. Maybe bandpass 8 pole is too much, maybe go for 4. So now we get more of the initial direct sound through the filter. Okay, that's nice. So we can also try here to amplify this even more with the peak filter. We have here the XP filter, which features a peak, which is basically not a bandpass. It's more like an EQ where you can push a certain frequency additionally. So we will also disable this, and then we try to find a nice sweet spot. That's too much. You can already hear it goes in the right direction. So what we need now is maybe distortion, maybe a bit crusher. Let's go with the distortion. Where is it? Oscillator, display, phase, data, random, oscillator, shaper. It's a shaper. Quantizer. It doesn't sound good. I probably also don't need this. So now that we have basically the rudimentary of the sound, what I usually do is to use an EQ plus because it's super easy and you can see what you're doing and how it ends up. So we need also 2 frequencies here maybe. And you try to amplify these 2 frequencies even more. So we can take here the output of the segments and start with the first one, increase the frequency. Something like this, and also here we go down. It's all about bringing out these vocal frequencies. So now we need some kind of bass, right? It's just overtones. And we can bring in a sine oscillator here and just skip the whole sequence here and blend this together in front of the ADSR. Right, this is the sine only. This is the top end. So this is something you can do. You can also switch on the retriggering of the oscillator, so you always have the same initial start point in the phase or in the cycle. You can also try to use the outcome here of this and put it into the phase input of the sine, so you distort the phase or the sine oscillator a bit with this. Or you can modulate here with the segments, then modulate the skew. So you can decide if you want to have it more gnarly or grunty or growly. So it depends on what kind of sound you're going for, right? But you get the idea. Maybe I'll leave it like this. You can also try to use a bit crusher here, bit 8 on that, to give it more this kind of Skrillex feel. He uses a lot of bit crushers. Maybe go back here to mix 0 and then use the segments to mix this in. And with the bit crusher, you get all these nice little digital overtones on top of that, so it sounds even more like, you know, these hyper growls. Maybe go back to this. And make this a bit lower here. Something like this. But you see, these frequencies are pretty important actually to hit the right frequencies, so it sounds like some animals doing some grunts. If if you are a bit off from these frequencies, it sounds completely different. So it's very important to dial in here the right frequencies. It's somewhere around 100 hertz above, and here it's around 1K, modulating down. You can also try to use here a second scroll instead of just one. So you duplicate this one and use a merge, where you bring in the second one. And then, of course, you take the output of the segments as an input. Right, so you move over here to the second one. And here you draw in some kind of different shape. Can I reset the curve? Yeah. So here I do basically the same thing as before. Just do this. Select everything. Right click and double. And then select everything again. Use randomize. Maybe use mirror. So you can play around with the second scroll here, with the second oscillator to, you know, morph into a different waveform. It's not really important, but can give the sound a different edge. Right click, reset. Right, or we can load in here some kind of saw. I have some different growls already here, hyper complex. It's also just a random waveform here, it's nothing special. So you can, yeah, experiment with that. But the really important part is basically the filtering here, hitting these right frequencies. What we also can try is to use a phaser. Because the phaser here does kind of the same thing. You can hear the phaser on the background, right? So here the thing is, we have an LFO inside of this phaser, and you can change the LFO speed with the setting here. And sometimes this is fine to have like a polyrhythmic movement in there, or polymeter movement in there. But I really like to take the output here of the segments into the input here of the phaser. So now this one is disabled, and the LFO is basically, uses the MSEC here as an input. So now we have the same position of the phaser every time we hit the key. And then we can even switch on here the stereo mode. And then mix it in here with the rest. So this is basically the rough idea about doing a growl or hyper growl, or however you want to call it. If you're not happy with this and you want to have it more dense, then you can always go here to the voice stacking mode, right? Or not voice, it's voice stacking here. So duplicate basically this patch 5 times. You go to the voice stack thing here. And then we can take -1 to +1, use this here to modulate the pitch of everything that's inside. Just a tad. Something like this. And we can maybe also try out, let's see here, maybe the filter frequencies. I don't know if this makes sense. Just a tad to have some differences between each of these voice stacks. And then you can try out and move this into different pan settings. So we have -1, +1. Okay, so we can take this here and spread this across the panorama. All we need now is basically a peak limiter. And what people usually do is they use some kind of odd on this. This one here, it's the old version. But what I prefer basically is to use an FX3. And in here you can take the peak limiter. It doesn't, which just limits basically the tops of the low, the mids, and the high, which is okay. You can also try out, and instead of a peak limiter, you take here a dynamics thing, which is more like an odd, where you have an upwards compression and downwards compression. But I don't really like this at all. In my opinion, it makes not, yeah, it's too much hassle to set this up and doesn't sound that good. What you can try is to use my auto level plugin we constructed also in some of my recent videos. So this one here, let me set this up. So there's an auto level now in every, oh, that's the wrong position. So instead of limiters, we have now in these 3 boxes here an auto leveler. So it tries to bring out all the frequencies for the low, mids, and highs at the same time, bring it up to 0 dB, which is kind of an upwards compression and downwards compression at the same time. You can also put your fancy level on there at the end. And then we use a macro and use this here for the fall time and see what comes out of that. So this is something you can do. Also FX2 instead of FX3. And here we take care of the bass and use a tool device and make everything mono. So everything below 300 Hz. And also a peak limiter to make sure this is peaking here. That's maybe too much. And also peak limiter at the top. And here we can cut out some frequencies from the middle. But there, when you cut this, all this stuff out here, it's basically removing everything that's important for the growl. So it doesn't make really sense here. I usually do this kind of stuff on Reese bass lines. It makes more sense there. But on these growls, you need to persist at all cases these growl frequencies to make it sound like a growl. That's the main takeaway from that. Sounds kind of okay for me. So you can do all kinds of things with this, right? You can change the scroll here. You can change the frequencies, how you modulate the frequencies. If you feed all this stuff into the sine oscillator here with the phase modulation. If you use a phaser, how you use the phaser, which kind of algorithm you use. So there are all kinds of things you can change to make this a different sound. Also, you're then, of course, in the effect chain, if you use an OTT, if you use bit 8, if you use distortion, it all changes the sound in different ways. Oh, this is too much. Maybe an amplifier here at the end. Just changing the slightly certain frequencies makes it a whole different sound. So yeah, that's interesting. So I want to show you this, how you can approach certain sounds or these kind of sounds for dubstep to make growl sounds in Bitwig Studio without any external devices. And I want to show you this and make a tutorial about this and give you some ideas for the right direction, basically. Okay. So that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Leave a like if you liked the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.